There comes a moment in every human life, a silent instant so powerful, so defining, that it can alter the entire direction of destiny. It doesn't arrive with thunder or applause. It comes quietly often when the world isn't watching, when the lights are dim, and when you're standing at a crossroads between who you were and who you could become. That moment is the decision, the single, solitary choice that can turn an ordinary life into something immortal. People speak of luck, talent, and opportunity. But behind every story of greatness lies one sacred truth. A single decision made with total conviction can ignite the forces of the universe. Think of Thomas Edison. He wasn't born a genius. He was a man obsessed with the idea of bringing light to the darkness. Thousands of failures stood between him and the invention of the electric bulb. But he made one decision: I will not stop until I find the way. That decision, not the invention itself, changed the world. Henry Ford made a decision too. When the world told him that only the wealthy could own cars, he decided to prove them wrong. He didn't wait for the right time. He created it. The assembly line wasn't born out of genius. It was born out of defiance. The decision that impossibility was just another word for untried. Every empire, every revolution, every breakthrough began with that one act of mental sovereignty, the choice to begin. You see, life doesn't respond to hesitation. It responds to decision. The man who hesitates watches opportunities pass him like ghosts in the fog. But the one who decides boldly, fearlessly, completely bends reality to his will. The truth is, most people never decide who they are. They drift. They wait for clarity. They wait for signs. They wait for the perfect plan. And in that waiting, their potential withers. They don't realize that clarity doesn't come before the decision. It comes after. When you decide, you command your mind, your emotions, and your energy to align in one direction. You awaken a sleeping power that has been lying dormant within you. Napoleon Hill called it the definite chief aim. Not a wish, not a vague dream, but a decision so complete that it leaves no room for retreat. The moment you decide who you will be, the man or woman you will become, you set in motion a chain reaction of unseen forces. The people you meet, the events that unfold, the chances that seem coincidental, all begin to arrange themselves in service of your vision. That is not superstition. That is the law of the mind. When your mind becomes definite, the world bends to match it. Think of it: every invention you use, every building that stands, every melody you've ever heard, all began in the invisible world of decision. Someone somewhere said this must exist, and it did. The tragedy is that most people never realize how powerful they are. They confuse choice with decision. Choice is what you do when you're shopping for options. Decision is when you burn the ships and commit to victory or death. The Latin root of the word decide means to cut off. To decide is to cut off all other possibilities, to declare with absolute certainty, this is my path, and I will walk it until the end. The world respects that kind of conviction because the universe itself moves in patterns of decisiveness. The sun doesn't ask permission to rise. The tide doesn't debate whether to return. The sea doesn't question whether to grow. Nature is decisive. Only man, gifted with thought, curses himself with doubt. But when a man decides, truly decides, he becomes like nature again, inevitable. There is power in a mind that cannot be swayed. There is freedom in a heart that knows its direction. There is magic in a soul that says, I will, no matter what. And the truth is, that decision you're avoiding, that one choice that keeps haunting your thoughts, that may be the door to your destiny. The moment you stop running from it and face it with courage, your entire life will transform. It doesn't matter how far behind you feel. It doesn't matter what mistakes you've made. The past is gone. The future is clay. What matters is this moment, the one you have right now, to decide that you will never again betray your potential. Because one single decision made in the silence of your soul can be worth more than a lifetime of waiting. So ask yourself right now, what would your life look like if you stopped hesitating? What would happen if you finally decided to become who you were always meant to be? Because the moment you decide, everything changes. When you make that decision, not a casual one, not a half-hearted, I'll try, but a true all-in, no turning back kind of decision, something mysterious begins to happen inside you. You start to feel alive again. The fog begins to lift. Your mind, once clouded by doubt, starts to sharpen like a blade that remembers its purpose. That's the hidden alchemy of decision. It awakens belief. And belief, genuine, unshakable belief, is the first currency of greatness. Without belief, effort becomes motion without direction. But when belief enters, effort becomes destiny and progress. Look back at every name that shaped history, from Lincoln to Disney, from Jobs to Mandela, and you'll find the same pattern. A single decision fueled by a faith that defied logic. Lincoln decided that the Union must stand even when the nation was splitting apart, and his own soul was burdened with grief. Walt Disney decided that the world needed a place where dreams could live even when bankers laughed at him, calling his idea a childish fantasy. Steve Jobs decided that a computer could be beautiful, personal, and revolutionary, and that decision rebuilt entire industries. Their belief was not born from guarantees. It was born from vision. They saw what didn't yet exist, and they believed in it so deeply that the world had no choice but to catch up. But here's what most people get wrong. Belief does not appear before the decision. It is the result of the decision. When you decide with your whole being, you create a new identity. That identity becomes the container for belief, and belief in turn gives birth to action. You can't wait to feel ready. You have to decide first, and readiness will grow inside the soil of that commitment. Think of the farmer who plants seeds in barren earth. He doesn't see the crop. He doesn't demand proof. He decides this ground will feed me, and he acts on that decision until the invisible becomes visible. That's how belief works. You water your decision daily with discipline. You feed it with faith. And one day, without warning, it bursts into life. Now, let's be honest. Decision alone is not enough. The world is full of people who decide for one day and forget the next. True decision means no retreat. It means burning the bridge back to mediocrity, because the path from decision to destiny runs through the valley of resistance. The valley will test your belief, your patience, your hunger. It will whisper, maybe this isn't for you. It will show you easier paths, safer choices, familiar comforts. That's where most people break. But those who endure, those who stay loyal to their decision, are the ones who rise above the noise of average existence. Edison didn't stop at the first failed experiment. He faced over 1,000 failures. But each failure was just another confirmation of his decision. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That wasn't arrogance. That was identity. When you decide at that level, failure no longer defines you. It refines you. You stop asking, will this work? And start declaring, I will make this work. That's a shift. That's the moment you cross from wishful thinking into creation. Most people think creation begins with talent. It begins with decision. The talent grows out of necessity. The mind adapts. The hands learn. The resources appear. Because when the mind has no alternative but success, it finds a way. Napoleon Hill wrote, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But what he truly meant was this. The moment you decide to conceive and believe in something with total faith, your subconscious mind becomes your most loyal servant. It begins to collect every piece of data, every opportunity, every person that can turn that decision into reality. The world doesn't favor the smartest, the luckiest, or the most privileged. It favors the most decided. You can't half decide your way to greatness. You can't whisper your dream and expect the universe to shout back. You have to roar it from the depths of your spirit until every fiber of your being vibrates with conviction. And here's the paradox. Once you truly decide, peace arrives. Not because the road gets easier, but because uncertainty dies. Doubt fades when there is no longer a debate in your mind. You're no longer asking, should I? You're declaring, I must. From that moment on, every challenge becomes part of your training. Every delay becomes a teacher. Every loss becomes material for your next rise. That's when your mind starts to evolve beyond fear. You start to look at obstacles the way a blacksmith looks at fire. Not as danger, but as transformation. And that is where your decision becomes sacred. It stops being about achievement and becomes about becoming. Because the power of a single decision is not measured by what you gain, but by who you become while honoring it. There is a point where decision transforms into identity, where what you chose to do becomes who you are. That's when purpose reveals itself. Not as a grand revelation from the sky, but as a quiet, undeniable pulse within your soul. Purpose doesn't come to the undecided. It doesn't whisper to the half-committed. It waits patiently for the one who has burned every escape route and said, I'm in this until the end. The moment you decide fully, your life begins to reorganize itself around that decision. People change, habits shift. Even time seems to stretch or shrink according to your clarity. It's not magic, it's alignment. Clarity is what happens when your thoughts, emotions, and actions finally move in the same direction. And that's what most people never experience. The raw, electric peace of knowing exactly why they wake up in the morning. When you have that, discipline is no longer a burden. It becomes devotion. Think about the greatest builders of history, not just those who built empires, but those who built themselves. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, faced chaos, daily war, betrayal, and loss. Yet he ruled his inner world through one decision, to live with virtue above all else. He couldn't control the storms around him, but he mastered the storms within. That's the essence of discipline, choosing control over chaos day after day, decision after decision. Discipline is not punishment. It's the language of self-respect. When you keep the promises you make to yourself, you teach your mind that your word is law. And the universe, like a mirror, reflects that certainty back to you in the form of results. The undisciplined seek motivation. The disciplined operate on commitment. One lives on emotion, the other on execution. And execution, my friend, is the bridge between decision and destiny. Think of every success story you've admired, from Carnegie's steel empire to Oprah's rise from nothing. They were not the most gifted. They were the most consistent. They made the same decision every day to move forward no matter what. That's the hidden law of greatness: repetition and purpose. While others chase new ideas, the greats deepen one decision until it becomes unbreakable truth. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's lonely. It's early mornings and late nights. It's doing what you said you'd do, even when no one applauds. But that's where transformation hides, in the invisible hours, the uncelebrated grind, the quiet war between your excuses and your potential. Every act of discipline strengthens your identity. Every small victory carves new neural pathways of power. You begin to feel it, the weight of weakness lifting, the confidence of momentum returning. And soon, what was once effort becomes instinct. You don't have to force greatness. You become the kind of person who lives it naturally. That's when purpose deepens into power. Because now you're not chasing success, you're embodying it. Your life stops being about outcomes and starts being about alignment. And from alignment comes energy, the kind of energy that makes others stop and notice without knowing why. It's the energy of certainty. Certainty is rare because most people are trained to doubt themselves. They were told to play it safe, to stay realistic, to avoid the risk of failure. But what they call realism is often just fear disguised as wisdom. The truth? Every realistic man once laughed at a dreamer, until that dreamer's decision became reality. You must choose which side of history you'll stand on, the doubters or the doers, because both live in the same world, breathe the same air, and face the same obstacles. The difference is in the decision. One decides to shrink, the other to rise. And the one who rises eventually becomes the example the rest follow. Look at your own life. There are moments you can trace back to a single decision that changed everything. The relationship you ended, the opportunity you took, the habit you started or quit. Those moments defined you because they required courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is loyalty to your decision in the presence of it. And that loyalty builds character, the kind that cannot be bought, taught, or imitated. When you act from that place, something divine moves through you. You start to sense that your decisions are not isolated. They ripple into eternity. Your discipline today might inspire someone you'll never meet. Your courage might free generations yet unborn. That is the true power of a single decision. It expands beyond you. It echoes through time. When Napoleon Hill studied the great minds of his era, men like Carnegie, Ford, and Rockefeller, he discovered they all shared one trait. They decided with clarity and acted with faith. Their empires rose not from luck, but from loyalty to one unshakable idea. They weren't waiting for the right moment. They created it through discipline, persistence, and belief in their purpose. And that's the invitation standing before you now, to choose who you will be. Not someday, not eventually, but now. To stop waiting for proof and start living like your dream is inevitable. Because the power of a single decision doesn't come from what it gives you. It comes from what it demands of you, a higher version of yourself. There will come a time, and it always comes, when your decision will be tested. Not once, not twice, but again and again, until the universe knows you mean it. The storms won't arrive as punishment. They arrive as proof. Proof of how deeply your roots go. Proof of whether your decision was built on emotion or conviction. Every great destiny must walk through the wilderness of resistance. Moses had to face the desert before the promised land. Mandela had to face prison before freedom. Edison had to face ridicule before light. And every person who has ever dared to say, "I decide who I will be," has had to pass through the fire. That's the cost of transformation, not in money, not in comfort, but in endurance. Because you cannot build resilience in comfort. Resilience is born in the dark hours, when your dream seems silent, when your faith feels empty, when every cell in your body whispers, "Quit." But here's the secret. The moment you want to quit the most is the moment you are closest to the shift. Every decision must die once so that it can be reborn as destiny. The weak abandon it in the valley. The strong carry it through. And that's why so few reach the summit, not because the mountain is too high, but because they give up halfway, right before the dawn breaks. You must remember, the night always fights hardest before the sun rises. And the universe tests you not to break you, but to make sure you can hold what you've asked for. There is no victory without proving ground, no triumph without trial. When Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, he revealed a profound profound truth. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But only the decided mind can see that seed. To the undecided, every challenge looks like failure. To the decided, every challenge looks like a lesson in disguise. That's what separates the masses from the masters. The masses see obstacles as signs to stop. The masters see them as signs they're on the right path. Because when you truly decide, you stop asking if it's possible and start asking how you'll make it possible. That shift changes everything. You stop being the victim of life and become the architect of it. You realize that problems are not walls, they are instructions. Every setback is the universe saying, grow stronger, get clearer, prove you deserve it, and you will. Because the power that rises in a human being who refuses to quit is unstoppable. History bows to such souls. The earth itself remembers their names. They are the ones who bend the future by standing unbroken in the present. When you stand firm in your decision, life begins to respect you differently. Doors that were closed begin to open. People who once doubted you start to sense your energy. Circumstances align in ways that defy logic. Not because of luck, but because of faith under pressure. Faith isn't passive belief. Faith is disciplined vision, holding the image of your goal so vividly that reality has no choice but to comply. You have to learn to believe even when your bank account is empty. To act rich in spirit when you're poor in circumstance. To speak power into existence when the world only offers silence. That's what every creator has done since the beginning of time. Before the invention, there was the vision. Before the masterpiece, there was the decision to create despite the doubt. There is a power that lives in all of us, but it sleeps until it's commanded. And the command that awakens it is one simple phrase: I have decided. The man who decides to rise cannot stay down. The woman who decides to believe cannot stay unseen. Because decision transforms the invisible into movement, and movement transforms reality. The great psychologist William James once said, believe that life is worth living, and your belief will help create the fact. Now, that's not poetic optimism, that's law. What you decide to believe becomes your atmosphere. The rich breathe in abundance before they have wealth. The strong feel victory before they see success. And the fulfilled decide they are grateful before life gives them more. That's the hidden power of gratitude. It turns your decision into magnetism. When you give thanks in the struggle, you tell the universe, I already trust you, and trust moves mountains faster than worry ever could. So when life shakes you, and it will, don't curse the test. Stand still and remember, this is where champions are forged. Every decision must pass through pressure before it becomes power. And when you walk through that storm with your head held high, you are not the same person who entered it. You become sharper, calmer, more certain. That's when life begins to mirror back your courage. And that's when you stop chasing opportunities and start attracting them. Because the world recognizes a decided soul, it can feel the difference. People will start to say, something changed in you. They'll notice it in your eyes, your tone, your presence. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the quiet fire of someone who finally knows where they're going and nothing can stop them. That's the kind of energy that rewrites fate. That's the kind of power one decision can unleash.